Chapter 1300. Miao Demon Xianyue was most likely in Jasper Palace. That beautiful, noble, and powerful vixen had yet to marry Chuolong. He wondered what they were up to. Is the nine-tailed fox queen beautiful? Li Qingshan suddenly asked Lu Chuanfeng. Lu Chuanfeng was still dumbstruck. He was completely speechless after hearing their conversation. This was a contest between the two most powerful legends in the 9 states for thousands of years. They fought for the world and decided the fate of the world. He did not even have the right to comment, much less participate. He only came back to his senses when Li Qingshan asked. He praised the most beautiful woman in the world. You've seen her before? Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. This title was too exaggerated. There were many beauties in the world. Spring flowers and autumn moons each had their own merits. Gu Yenying could be called the most beautiful woman in the small world because she had the aura of a cultivator. She did not have the right in the 9 states, but he did not think there was any woman in the 9 states who could beat her. I haven't. Lu Chuanfeng rubbed his hands. But that's what everyone says. I see. Li Qingshan suddenly had the urge to kill his way into Jasper Palace and snatch the 9-tailed fox queen. He wanted to see Chuolong's expression. However, this thought was fleeting. He did not lack that vixen. There was no point in doing something like this just to attack his enemy. He needed to improve his cultivation. As long as he was strong enough, he would not be afraid of any schemes. He would definitely turn Chuolong's wedding upside down. He also had Deep Blue Fatty continue to devour rocks and soil. She did not stop even when facing off against Chuolong. Deep Blue Fatty was not affected by the hostility of the world at all. She ate with gusto. She could swallow a small mountain with every bite, and she became more and more obedient to Li Qingshan. As the saying went, another's hero is my enemy. He was the enemy of the 9 states. He was also the hero of the small world. He provided a lot of resources for the small world. Many more islands appeared on the vast sea of the small world, and they continued to grow. If the entire 9 prefectures were to be swallowed, it would definitely form a new continent. Let the small world grow to the same level as the 9 states, or even higher. Li Qingshan waved his hand. Go to the South Sea. Ah, the 9 states have become a battlefield. It's too dangerous. All right. Lu Chuanfeng listened obediently. Zhang Xian cupped his fists and took his leave. If the world was really destroyed, then following in his footsteps was undoubtedly the only way to survive. Rumble! The earth shook violently, as if a giant beast that was tens of thousands of times larger than the void-devouring beast was awakening, letting out muffled roars. All the mountain peaks were shaking, and some were even directly torn apart and collapsed. What a terrifying power! Even the tremors of the ox demon wouldn't have such power. Li Qingshan couldn't help but sigh. The feeling was abnormally strong. He remembered reading the news in his previous life that a magnitude 8 earthquake was equivalent to the power of 400 nuclear bombs. Fortunately, the will of the world was boundless, and the so-called hostility was just a subconscious reaction. Otherwise, killing him would be a piece of cake. The earthquake was not a coincidence. The void-devouring beast had swallowed billions of tons of earth and rock. Not only had it destroyed the geological structure, but the entire crust had also become fragile, gradually unable to suppress the magma and flames deep underground. And this was only because the Green Province's crust was thick. If it were the Mist Province, it would have been like the end of the world with erupting volcanoes and flowing magma. Was this what it felt like to destroy the world? Li Qingshan closed his eyes. His smile faded away. He suddenly radiated with a terrifying aura that could destroy everything, condensing into a blackish-green statue behind him. It was blurry, terrifying, and sacred. The Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction showed signs of breaking through. Compared to the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, this cultivation method was basically a stepchild. He had never cared too much about it, nor did he spend any time or effort on cultivating it. Ever since he no longer had to disguise his human identity, all cultivation methods were the same. It was the same for all cultivation methods. It was only because it could improve his overall strength that he persisted in changing cultivation methods. Actually, he had always found it strange. Cultivation methods often had exclusivity. It was not like the more cultivation methods one practiced, the more powerful they were. Instead, they interfered with one another. Every single transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine had its own cultivation method. Even with that being the case, the various transformations interfered with one another. However, it had never rejected his various human cultivation methods, from the innate method of practicing qi in the beginning to the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction now. It was like a natural blank space. He felt like there was a deep meaning behind it. He thought, now that I've reached the 4th layer with the ape demon's method of moon fishing, I can't break through again anytime soon. I can use this as a perfect opportunity to practice the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction. The Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction had always been born in an age of destruction. It contained the will of great destruction and great destruction. Only gods had the right to come into contact with such a will. It was just like how Gongyuan was affected by ruins, and if cultivators used this power, they would definitely suffer from cultivation deviation in the end. And not everyone had the opportunity to experience such a will. Li Qingshan had only seen the remains of a destroyed world and comprehended it slightly. To be honest, this comprehension was very shallow. Seeing a corpse was completely different from seeing a scene of murder. But in that moment, he gained an even deeper and greater comprehension, which was to personally destroy a world, surpassing the creator of the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction. The Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction began to make a qualitative breakthrough. He vaguely understood that if he could push this cultivation method to the limit, its power would not be any weaker than any of its current transformations. If it were not for his fortuitous encounter in space, it would have been impossible for him to comprehend this. If it were not for the space-devouring beast, even Tenli Qingshan would not be able to destroy a world. The legendary world of freedom wielded both creation and destruction. Unknowingly, Li Qingshan had also taken on this role, creating a miniature world as he destroyed the 9 provinces, the Extreme Emperor's destruction and the Extreme Emperor's restoration. Perhaps they've always been 2 sides of the same coin. Li Qingshan murmured to himself. The statue behind him became slightly clearer. The Chan Monastery of Devanaga. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the benevolent and plump face of a giant Buddha that had been chiseled out of a mountain. Crack! The worshipping monks were taken aback. Only then did they feel the mountains tremble and the bell ring. Why is there an earthquake in the Green Province? The dauntless monk walked out of the grand hall. Buddhist light condensed in his eyes, and he unleashed the eye of the heaven, gazing towards the source of the earthquake. He immediately saw the mountainous, all-devouring space-devouring beast, as well as Li Qingshan on the space-devouring beast. The dauntless monk shuddered. He cried out involuntarily, "The world of freedom!" Others might not be able to recognize the blurry statue, but as an eminent monk of Buddhism, how could he not recognize it? This was a god with great abilities among Buddhism, standing at the apex of the 3,000 worlds. Yet he persisted in opposing Buddhism, obstructing the Buddhist Dharma, and rebelling against Buddhism. As a result, he was also known as the World of Freedom Demon Lord. He was the greatest enemy of the Buddha, who carried the red flag and opposed the red flag. Amitabha, just what sins has our Chan monastery of Devanaga committed? Chapter 1301. The so-called enemies of Buddha did not mean destroying a few temples and killing a few monks. Only by desecrating the Buddhist Dharma and destroying the foundation of Buddhism would it count. It had nothing to do with strength or weakness. Therefore, the enemies of Buddha usually had a deep connection with Buddhism. Some of them were even practitioners of Buddhism. This was the case for the white-bone Bodhisattva and the Mahasvara. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that even though the Buddha had boundless divine powers, he was unable to destroy it. This only demonstrated just how rare the enemy of Buddha was. Yet two had appeared consecutively now, and they were both disciples of the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Even with the dauntless monk's mental fortitude, he basically wanted to cry. The Mahasvara was obviously a Buddhist deity, but not a single temple would worship his idol. Moreover, all those who worshipped him were condemned as heretics and had to find ways to ban them. Naturally, Li Qingshan didn't believe in the Mahasvara. The indigo divine statues behind him were similar to the Seven Treasures Buddhist king's incarnation of the Seven Treasures Buddhas. They weren't real deities descending to the mortal world, but they possessed great power. However, the Seven Treasures monk king had to cultivate and worship for hundreds of years before he was able to condense the Seven Treasures Buddha incarnation. He, on the other hand, relied entirely on his qi to sense and transform into a demon with a single thought. It was certain that no matter if it was the Extreme Emperor's records of world destruction or the Extreme Emperor's records of world destruction, this move did not exist. How could the despairing people of the apocalypse understand the true meaning of great destruction? In the end, they would only descend into madness. Anyone who had even a shred of reverence and faith in the great freedom, heavenly demon master, would not be able to display his might. After a long time, Li Qingshan opened his eyes and retracted his aura. The statue of a god dissipated, not knowing that he had also been labeled as the enemy of Buddha. As a result, when he arrived at the Chan monastery of Devanaga on the space-devouring beast and saw the dauntless monk angrily berate the enemy of the Buddha, he rubbed his head in confusion. "Monk, have you gone mad? Enemy of Buddha is little and okay. When did I become the enemy of Buddha? Is it contagious?" Li Qingshan even felt a little wronged. He had always respected Buddha, although he had killed monks and destroyed temples. Now, you want to destroy the world, but you can't slander me like this. The alarms in the temple rang, and all the monks looked miserable as if a great disaster was about to befall them. Based on past experience, nothing good would come from the arrival of this person. The dauntless monk did not want to say anything more. He only felt like his heart had died. "If you enter the temple, I'll throw my life at you." "Yo, look at how ignorant you are. I won't listen to such words. Let's see what you have to fight me with." Li Qingshan had specially come to the Chan monastery of Devanaga, and that was with good intentions. Yet he was actually turned away at the entrance. It was far too detestable. He crushed the entrance with a stomp and tried to force his way in. "Traitorous disciple, don't try to be unreasonable." The unraging monk rushed over in a hurry, blocking in front of Li Qingshan. "Master, I've already been expelled from the sect. I'm not even a layman disciple anymore." The unraging monk sighed. He was haggard, and his colossal body had thinned slightly too. Li Qingshan couldn't bear to see this. Forget it. Forget it. There's nothing much to see in this monk temple anyway. I'm here for something important. Let's go. I'll treat you to a drink." The unraging monk grabbed his arm and took a step, arriving in a small town outside the mountain. The sky was hazy, and it began to drizzle. The town was deathly silent. Li Qingshan asked, "Little and—" The unraging monk shook his head. The hungry ghost realm. The tattered banner was soaked by the rain very soon. It hung down, and the two of them entered the small tavern that was filled with dust. Li Qingshan lifted up his bowl, and the unraging monk had already downed several bowls. He tasted it, but he discovered it was just water. Even without the hungry ghost realm, this tavern wouldn't be able to continue operating. This is no longer just adding alcohol to the water. It doesn't even taste like alcohol at all. It's water in the first place. I've already given up on alcohol. TSK, what are you acting like you're drinking water for? Li Qingshan placed down his bowl and said sternly, the Chan monastery of Devanaga can't remain in the Green Province anymore. Foe, what do you want? Before the unraging monk could say anything, the dauntless monk's furious bellow rang out from outside, causing the entire room to fill with dust. If you call me the foe of Buddha again, I'll really be the foe of Buddha this time. Li Qingshan stood up suddenly. Actually, he did not find the title of foe of Buddha to be anything special. It was just like how a cat was called a dog, or an ox was called a horse. He would never be happy. Senior brother, why do you say Qingshan is the foe of Buddha? The unraging monk was very confused too. I personally saw the Great Freedom's avatar behind him, the Great Freedom Demon Lord. The unraging monk was stunned and in disbelief. The Demon Lord's Kitagarbha was different from gods and Buddhas. Even those who worshipped the Great Freedom Demon Lord could not condense an avatar like that. What does Great Freedom have to do with me? Only then did Li Qingshan confirm the name of the avatar, but he did not revere it at all. It just happened to coincide with their paths, which triggered a celestial resonance. He had been labeled as the foe of Buddha just like that. That was far too unfair. However, he had overlooked something. If he coincided with the Great Freedom Demon Lord's path, what else could he be other than the foe of Buddha? Although he had become a monk halfway through, he was basically even more righteous than little, and the dauntless monk pointed at Li Qingshan furiously. That's right. It's exactly this attitude that shows no respect at all. He's clearly the foe of Buddha. Li Qingshan was speechless. This was like someone who said they were not mentally ill, but they were definitely mentally ill. There was no way to discuss it. Whatever. If he's the foe of Buddha, then so be it. I won't stoop to your level. The Green Province is about to be finished. I'd advise you to move away. As if to prove his words, the ground shook again, and the water in the bowl rippled. The dauntless monk roared furiously. It's you. Li Qingshan shrugged. It's me. The destruction of the world, and the lives are plunged into misery and suffering. Do you know what kind of sin this is? This is war. It's always the innocent and weak who suffer first. However, I wasn't the one who started this war. Li Qingshan remained calm. Since he had made up his mind, there was no need for him to pretend to be compassionate anymore, and trusting the fate of his women and children to the benevolence of the enemy was not something a man should do. No matter how many innocents he slaughtered, no matter how many sins he shouldered, it would never change. The dauntless monk was rendered speechless from anger. The unraging monk opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he ended up sighing. Li Qingshan pointed at the bowl of water and said slowly, the Buddha believes that a bowl of water contains 48,000 insects. This line of poetry was about how there were countless insects that were difficult to see with the naked eye in the water. Even drinking the water carried the sin of killing, which required chanting scriptures to expiate. Are all life equal, or are they not? Li Qingshan seemed like he was asking a question, but he also seemed like he was muttering to himself. If they were equal, then killing insects was no different from killing people. They were born with a body of heinous sin. If they were not equal, then the difference between mortals and immortals and Buddhas was probably even greater than the difference between insects and mortals. As a result, killing all life was as normal as drinking water. The dauntless monk and the unraging monk both possessed great wisdom, so they immediately understood what he was trying to say. They looked at one another, and there was only one word in their eyes. Enemies of the Buddha. This was questioning the Buddhist Dharma from the very foundation, slandering the Buddhist Dharma. Li Qingshan drank all the water in the bowl and smiled. I'll call you master one more time. Our fate as master and disciple has come to an end. P.S. I bow and thank the new alliance leader of student Yenke_Glacier Burial. I hope you can keep up the good work and reach new heights. Ha ha. Chapter 1302. With a thump, Li Qingshan tore through the air and took off. The unraging monk stared at the empty bowl on the table and remained silent for a very long time. Once upon a time, he had hoped to change Li Qingshan to lead him onto the orthodox path of Buddhism so that he could inherit his legacy. In a daze, so many years had passed. Only then did he discover that Li Qingshan had never changed. He had only become stronger and stronger. However, he was the unraging monk after all. He smiled in a self-deprecating manner. Senior brother, you accept a foe of Buddha, and I accept a foe of Buddha. You can say, we're going through thick and thin together. The dauntless monk shot a vicious glance at him and also smiled bitterly. Both of them had their own beliefs. What Li Qingshan wanted to do definitely could not be tolerated by Buddhism, which added the title of foe of Buddha to him. Maintaining a master-disciple relationship like this would only hinder the unraging monk's cultivation, so he might as well just cut it off. Rumble! A bolt of lightning split the air and struck him. Li Qingshan could sense the hostility of the world grow stronger. Even cultivators would tremble in fear when faced with the obscure will of heaven, but when he recalled the situation in the miniature world, he became even more filled with lofty sentiments. Fighting against the heavens and pitting one's life against fate was an endless joy. He returned to Deep Blue's little fatty's back and continued devouring. He had already carved out a great valley outside the Chan Monastery of Devanaga. Before long, this place would not just be affected by the aftershocks. It would probably become the epicenter of the quakes. Li Qingshan thought of something. He brought his fingers together like a sword and pointed at the cliff face in the distance. A horizontal stroke, a vertical stroke, a hook. In the end, he even drew a circle. After studying it carefully, he nodded in satisfaction and rode off on the space-devouring beast while laughing aloud. The dauntless monk and the unraging monk returned to the monastery. From afar, they saw a huge word that spanned several hundred meters across on the cliff face, demolish. There was even a twisted circle around the word demolish. The dauntless monk was utterly furious, but as he gazed at the great valley outside and sensed the earthquakes that became more and more frequent, he had already decided to listen to Li Qingshan's suggestion and leave the Green Province, a place of trouble, devouring, digesting, and destroying. The space-devouring beast rampaged through the barren land. In this apocalypse that he personally created, Li Qingshan could sense the will of great destruction and great destruction even more deeply. His ultimate king's record of world destruction progressed with each passing day. Gong Yuan also said goodbye to him, returning to the ocean abyss to consolidate her gains from these past few days so that she could convert them into cultivation and reach the next level. They were not men and women of the mundane world. It was impossible for them to be together day and night. On the vast sea, white clouds and gray dogs. Time always passed extremely quickly during cultivation. Li Qingshan suddenly had an idea. He felt a trace of uneasiness, so he opened his eyes and stood up feeling a little puzzled. That was because that uneasiness did not originate from himself, but from another source. As a result, he used the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression. He calmed his heart and began to deduce. Spirit turtles were born with the ability to prophesy. After forming a world within their bodies, this ability increased as well. Before long, they grasped an opportunity. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a piece of the spirit turtle's profound shell. It was shrouded in mist, and countless sceneries flashed past, but they were indistinct and impossible to see clearly. As the saying went, the heavenly secrets were unfathomable. Even a true spirit turtle could not divine everything, let alone a dabbler like him. Without any information at all, it was very difficult for him to obtain any accurate results. Only when it concerned his own life or death would he be able to sense things more accurately. He calmed himself down and slowly swept his right hand across the mirror image. He parted the thick mist, and a beautiful face appeared. Hai Tang! Li Qingshan gazed at the beautiful face. Not only had it not been corroded by time, but it was even more beautiful than before. A pair of eyes that resembled peach blossoms stared at him through the mirror. That was obviously impossible. It was impossible for her to see him. The mirror image was only a product of the heavenly secrets. However, the feeling was so strong that it was like they were separated by a layer of glass. Suddenly, he understood that she was thinking of him. Otherwise, he would not have felt this at all. Although many things had happened between them, their fate was not actually that deep. It was not like his relationship with Gu Yenying, where they fell in love at first sight. It was also not like his relationship with Han Qiongji, where they entered an engagement when they were still insignificant. Even Gong Yuan, whom he had met very late, could dual cultivate with. They had even fought side by side, many times going through trials of life and death. The reason why he could sense something this time was basically all because of her unrequited love and the red thread that connected them. Unlike in his memories, there was no bitterness in her expression. Instead, there was a sense of tranquility and indifference, so clear that it was almost transparent. She did not seem like a pitiful woman who was infatuated with love at all. Instead, she seemed like an enlightened monk. She did not speak of parting, did not speak of haggard, only of longing. Even he was moved. The mirror image rippled as well. Only when he composed himself, in a hurry, did the ripples settle down. With my current mental fortitude, I'm still focusing on the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, yet my mind has actually been shaken. That's unbelievable. Her love was so deep, to this extent. Is this what they mean by sincerity can move metal and rock? Even merfolk, who were infatuated with love, could not be so stubborn. It was not like she was a mortal woman, unable to live without a man. There was clearly a much vaster and higher path ahead of her. So why did she have to be trapped by love? Han Qiongji had once stated that she liked his courageous, diligent, and unfettered appearance. This was also the reason why he admired Gu Yenying. This was the mainstream ideology of the cultivation community. Even if they were to become partners of cultivation, the path still came first. A woman like Begonia was truly an anomaly among cultivators. Although he claimed to have a harem, that was only because he wanted to break free from his inhibitions and pursue freedom. From a certain perspective, it was also for the path of the ape demon. It was impossible for him to really place all the women he knew in a palace. They all had their own paths and pursuits. And now that a great battle was imminent, cultivation still came first. Otherwise, if he was defeated, he would not even be able to keep his life. So what was the point of having a harem? Recently, he had basically devoted all of his attention to the extreme emperor's record of world destruction. He did not even have the time to control his clone, much less find women. Since he had sensed something now, how could he just stand by and do nothing? Li Qingshan unfurled his wings and took off into the air. He sensed slightly and knew she was in the west. Although he did not have a precise location, there was clearly a fortuitous encounter guiding him. He flew across the ocean and returned to the 9 provinces. He passed through the Mist Province and entered the Thunder Province. The terrain suddenly rose up, turning into a majestic plateau. Mountains rose and fell, covered in white snow. The clouds rose and fell, holy and tranquil. The scenery was pleasant. Li Qingshan sensed that the magnetic field here was abnormally chaotic. When the clouds accumulated to a certain level, they would trigger lightning and thunder, which was extraordinarily violent. Many of the lightning bolts did not descend from the sky, but rose up from the ground. They danced wildly like snakes, connecting the sky and the earth in a magnificent and glorious manner. I'm currently plagued by misfortune. Coming here is basically asking for a lightning strike. Hold on, don't tell me this place is also influenced by the will of the heavens, trying to put me in danger? Chapter 1303. The heavenly secrets were profound and unfathomable. They were clearly unconscious, yet they could trigger fortuitous encounters and lay down fatal traps. They were more powerful than any schemer. They could even fool the minds of cultivators, making them either foolish or insane, walking into death step by step without even knowing it. If it were not for the fact that Li Qingshan possessed the spirit turtle's bloodline, he probably would not have thought of something like that. I don't fear the will of the heavens, but the most important thing right now is to find Haitang. I might as well keep a low profile and avoid trouble like the spirit turtle. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and withdrew all of his demon qi. His face turned back to human. When he opened his eyes again, his scarlet pupils had turned black as well. His expression was tranquil and indifferent. It was not just his aura. Even his sense of existence had weakened. If he did not pay attention to it intentionally, he might even be overlooked. Wind surged and clouds surged in the sky. The clouds surged, bringing with them a torrential rain and thunder. Li Qingshan smiled and leapt up gently, merging with the torrential rain. Boom! A bolt of blue lightning passed by him and shattered a huge boulder. While the rubble was still flying through the air, another string of lightning fell, illuminating the surroundings. What a heavenly will! Li Qingshan swam through the pitch-black rain like a spirit turtle in the deep sea. Almost half of the lightning bolts were greeting him. Even if 10 great cultivators worked together, they would not be this powerful. This was the might of the world. However, not a single bolt of lightning could hit him. It was as if even the mysterious will of the heavens could not lock onto him right now, allowing him to move freely through the pool of lightning. Ha ha! What can the will of the heavens do to me? Li Qingshan smiled. A bolt of lightning beside him suddenly twisted and struck his face. He grinned. It did not hurt, but it was rather awkward. Fortunately, there was no one around. Just his current mental state was not the spirit turtle's. He had accidentally leaked his aura. When he passed through the thunderstorm and found that thread of fate, he headed into the depths of the Thunder Province. He passed through several thousand mountains and several hundred rivers before encountering a few more thunderstorms. Suddenly, he saw a glorious mountain city, like a torch rising in the darkness. It burned to the ends of the world. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. She was there. The mountain city was more than 10,000 feet tall, and 3 characters were carved on the city gate, City of 10,000 Buddha. Such arrogance! Li Qingshan gazed around. The Buddha statues he had seen in the Chan monastery of Devanaga earlier were actually everywhere here. Apart from the pavilions, terraces, and palaces, the entire mountain city was filled with Buddha statues of various sizes. Not just 10,000, but hundreds of millions. Not even the Lingua temple could compare to the dense Buddhist light that gathered in the mountain. But what is Haitang doing here? Could it be that she has converted to Buddhism? All right, I've just ascended to the throne of Buddha, and now I've come to a den of thieves. The city gate was open, as if it was waiting for him. Who is it? A low shout came from the city gate. The other guards were also alarmed. They only relaxed when they saw that there was no one in front of the city gate. Who are you talking about? Don't make a fuss. Could it be that I'm seeing things? I clearly saw. That's enough. You must be seeing things. In this kind of weather, even cultivators would not casually go out. Besides, so what if there were people? Are they supposed to come to the city and wreak havoc? This is the city of myriad Buddhas of Shiliang. Coming in here is basically walking into a trap. Look at the sky. It's going to thunder again. Let's prepare to cultivate with the thunder. Before they knew it, the dark clouds had descended upon the city, drowning even the royal palace on the mountain. However, not a single drop of rain fell. It was as if something was brewing. A guard suddenly suppressed his voice. I heard that a foe of Buddha has appeared in the Green Province. She was originally the princess of the Chu Kingdom of the Green Province, but she's resurrected somehow. She's taken over the capital of the Scarlet Province and slaughtered everyone in the city. All the guards felt chills down their spines. A monster seemed to be lurking in the dark clouds, staring at them. The Thunder Province had always revered the Buddhist Dharma. Basically, everyone worshipped the Buddha. Even the king of Shiliang had been founded by monks. Did that not make him the greatest target of the foe of Buddha? Boom! The rumble of thunder gave everyone a fright. Returning to their senses, they all cursed the guard. Only when they changed the topic and talked about women did the terrifying atmosphere ease up. Hee, when do you think the prince will be able to bring a beauty home? I think it's going to be soon. The prince has reincarnated 7 times, gone through 3 heavenly tribulations, and is infatuated with Headmaster Chio. Even a rock should be melted by now. High up in the mountain city, in an exquisite pavilion with a different style from other buildings, a woman was lying lazily in a tent. Her heart was throbbing inexplicably, or rather, when that name was once again circulating in her ears, the throbbing never subsided. Do you still remember me? Maybe you don't. That's okay, as long as I remember you. She muttered to herself. A smile floated on her red lips. She was as beautiful as a flower. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Headmaster, that Prince Sanyang is here again. I think he wrote a new love poem? Yes, I know. Ask him to wait. A moment later, the tent rose. The woman did not bother to dress up. She casually put on a long robe and walked out of the boudoir. The pavilion was filled with singing and dancing. The sound of music could only serve as a foil to the laughter. It was a noisy scene of the mortal world. As her figure appeared, the laughter suddenly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were attracted to her, regardless of gender or age. But the one with the brightest eyes was a monk. He was wearing a red monk robe. His hair was short and neat, but it was not shaved like the monks of the Middle Earth. It did not affect his handsome appearance at all. Instead, it gave him a solemn and holy temperament. The women in the pavilion looked at him with passionate eyes. The men were very respectful and bowed to him from afar, but he was unmoved. When the woman appeared, he immediately came forward, put his palms together, and bowed. Haitang, you are getting more and more beautiful. His eyes were sincere, without lust. He did not hide the admiration in his heart and did not care about other people's eyes. Begonia said, Your Highness is too kind. I don't deserve it. May I know what brings you here? I wrote another poem for you. Begonia interrupted him. Your Highness, thank you for your kind intentions, but you should know my origins. But you should know my background, and you should also know who my man is, right? I obviously know about Li Qingshan, but how can a heartless person like him be your man? What the hell? Even monks are trying to steal my woman, and they're acting like they're infatuated. And the onlookers are all reasonable. There are actually quite a few monks among them. Don't tell me the city of myriad Buddhas is actually the home of perverted monks. Li Qingshan cursed inside. Ever since he arrived in the city, he had locked onto Begonia's presence. He happened to hear the disturbance. However, he did not know that the Buddhism of the Thunder Province was a tantric sect. Even monks were forbidden from marrying, which was why they could establish the kingdom of Shiliam. And it was similar to savage places like the Mist Province and the Shuang Province. The people here were very open and bold. Not only was public courtship not a bad thing, but it was even a good story. Floating astronomy. Chapter 1304. Humph, it's fine if you're an ordinary cultivator, but I'm half a Buddhist disciple, so I'm called Brother Buddha. Watch me use my supernatural power and protect the Dharma to destroy your lust nest. With a thought, the heavenly secret was sensed, and thunder roared. The blazing white lightning was like a divine dragon, passing through the sea of clouds and illuminating the corner of his mouth, revealing half of his fangs. The wind chimes on the eaves tinkled, and the rain fell on the bluestone street. In an instant, it was raining heavily, and the world was dark. Li Qingshan's killing intent was born, so he simply opened his chest and let the rain wash over him. It was already late at night, and there were not many people on the street. The heavy rain washed away everything, leaving him alone. There were Buddhist shrines and statues everywhere on both sides. There were also Vajra protectors, arhats exorcising demons, and all kinds of unknown gods and monsters. The style was very different from the temples in Qingzhou. There was a strange and inhuman feeling, as if they were all silently watching him. There was a terrifying ferocity in the flashing lightning. A white-haired old woman was chanting scriptures under the eaves when she suddenly saw a figure coming from the foot of the mountain. He walked very slowly, but in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of her. She could not help but widen her eyes. The person smiled at her, revealing his white teeth. She trembled, and the chill went deep into her bones. In the blink of an eye, the figure had disappeared, as if it was just an illusion. But that smile had been deeply imprinted in her heart, reminding her of all the glorious statues of demons and monsters she had seen, but none of them were as vivid as that ordinary human face. It was like a demon king walking out of a nightmare, resisting and subduing, laughing at the Dharma, and breaking the Buddhist kingdom. She turned the scriptures quickly, and her mouth kept chanting, unable to hide her fear. In the brightly lit building, everyone was watching attentively. They did not even have time to care about the rain and thunder. Anyway, they were already used to it. With the protection of the thunderous formation, no lightning would fall into the city, and it would not be as exciting as the scene in front of them. This Master Chiu actually said that she had a man. Obviously, she did not intend to accept Prince Songyang's affection. It was really shocking. Prince Songyang did not disappoint them. He immediately said the name of Li Qingshan. Not only was he not afraid, but he also showed his determination. He was indeed the monk of 7 lives of love. Begonia sighed softly. Since he had said it out loud, there was no longer any room for negotiation. Thunder Prefecture was no longer a suitable place to stay. He might as well say it out loud. Does the prince really have feelings for her? Prince Songyang smiled. If Haitang doesn't believe me, you can ask everyone here. Ask everyone in the city. Even a 3-year-old child would know the name of the monk of 7 lifetimes of passion. The great wheel temple of Laijo worshipped the saint king of Chakravarti. Their disciples did not enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. When their lifespan was about to come to an end, they would condense their psyche into a tiny bit of true spirit and place it into the body of a newborn, turning it into a spirit child. Although it was impossible to retain all the experience and memories, however, they were much stronger than ordinary cultivators. If one life was not enough, they would be reincarnated again. It was called Little Samsara. With this continuous accumulation, as long as they did not fall along the way, everyone had the chance to become a Buddha. These people were known as living Buddhas. After countless years of accumulation, the number of reincarnated living Buddhas in Thunder Province was simply innumerable. This was the true meaning of the city of myriad Buddhas. This Prince Songyang had cultivated for 7 lifetimes, and each of his lifetimes was filled with lingering experiences. Moreover, he was handsome and had a brilliant literary talent. He was the dream lover of all the women in Thunder Province. His love poems were sung everywhere, so he was known as the monk of 7 lifetimes of passion. Asking him if he had feelings was like asking a monk if he had Buddha in his heart. Many people jeered. If the prince was heartless, then there would be no more lovers in the world. Begonia said, "I am not asking anyone else. I am only asking you." Prince Songyang was slightly moved and smiled warmly. "Indeed, you are the woman who understands me the best. The feelings of a cultivator are naturally different from worldly feelings, but they are even better than worldly feelings. If you can become my partner, you will be the queen of Shi Liang Kingdom in the future, and I swear that I will never marry another woman." These words made the people in the building gasp. The women were full of envy and unwillingness, but the men were moved by the power. Prince Songyang had reincarnated for 7 lifetimes. In his 6th lifetime, he even became the host of the Great Will Temple and could almost ascend to heaven. In his 7th lifetime, he chose a prince as his spirit child. Not only would he ascend to the throne, he would also continue to host the Great Wheel Temple. He would have unparalleled power and could be said to be the first person in Thunder Province. Begonia only needed to nod her head, and she would be above everyone else. With the support of the Great Wheel Temple and the entire Shi Liang Kingdom, it would not be difficult to go through the 3rd heaven's trial. It was like ascending to heaven in a single bound. Not to mention women, even men would not be able to refuse such conditions. Prince Songyang ignored the reactions of the people around him and stared at Begonia affectionately. "Haitang, does this prove my feelings? Perhaps my feelings are not perfect, but I am confident that it is better than Li Qingshan's half-hearted feelings. I am afraid that he has already forgotten about you." Outside the building, there was a surge of people. Even if it was a storm, it could not stop the enthusiasm of the crowd. The building was completely surrounded. Li Qingshan quietly came to the outside of the building and hid in the crowd. When he heard this, he was furious. "This bastard bald donkey. It's fine if he wants to poach me, but he also wants to step on me to ascend to the throne." Prince Songyang's conditions were indeed excellent, but he was not worried that Begonia would accept it. If she changed her mind so easily, then he would not have come to Laijo at all. In the beginning, they would not have been so involved, and they would have missed each other in the vast sea of people. Yes, he may have forgotten about me. There have always been a lot of women around him, and it is true that he is half-hearted. No, maybe he has never valued love so much. Begonia mercilessly criticized Li Qingshan. He was simply a scumbag among scumbags. Everyone felt that leaving such a man was simply doing justice on behalf of heaven. Li Qingshan's face darkened, but he had to admit that she did not wrongly accuse him. He could hear the deep feelings in her words, so he listened quietly. A smile appeared on Prince Songyang's face. His persistence for a few years had finally paid off. A few years might be a long time for mortals, but for him who had reincarnation of the seventh reincarnation, it was nothing. There were not many female cultivators to begin with, and those who could reach such a cultivation level were even rarer. Moreover, she was born with beauty and peerless elegance. She also cultivated the bewitching technique, which further enhanced her beauty to the extreme. As long as he had her, he would not put ordinary women in his eyes. It would be of great benefit to his cultivation of the great happiness dhyana. Tantric Buddhism was regarded as an outside path by other sects, and this great happiness dhyana was close to the demonic path. Only those with great wisdom and perseverance could cultivate it. In the midst of love and desire, one would understand the Buddhist principle that sex is emptiness. Emptiness is sex. In the end, one must transcend. But he felt that he had a clear conscience. This was also of great benefit to Begonia. If she could break free of sex and convert to Buddhism, it would be even more beneficial, and she would be his natural Taoist companion. Begonia finished in one breath, paused, and suddenly changed the topic. But what does this have to do with me? What does it have to do with you? Prince Songyang was stunned. Begonia said, "Why must you calculate the pros and cons? And why must there be a return? I am in love with him, but that is my own business. Don't tell me that if Buddha does not give you benefits, your Highness will not believe it." Prince Songyang was sullen. How can a mere evildoer be compared to Buddha? Why is your Highness confused? I am not talking about Li Qingshan, but love. In my heart, love is more important than Buddha. But even if Li Qingshan is wrong, he has never asked me for anything in return, and he does not owe me anything. Besides, he is very strong. Your Highness, I am grateful for your care all these years. I really do not want you to be involved in this. I will take my leave now. Begonia bowed and turned back to her room. Both inside and outside the building were silent. As people of Lijiao, nothing was more important than Buddha. They could not accept this statement, but they were moved. Wait, where are you going? Prince Songyang felt that he was losing something very important, and his heart was empty. Naturally, I am going to find him. Begonia looked back and smiled without any regrets. Prince Songyang was even more reluctant and could not help but say, "He is the enemy of Xia Kingdom, the enemy of Rinhuang. He will not live for long." So what? Begonia was surprised. She did not think that this was a big deal, but considering the thoughts of ordinary people, she thoughtfully said, "Well, that is why your Highness dares to be so persistent, not afraid of offending him. Why do you say this? I have already expressed my love to you a few years ago." Prince Songyang angrily said, but he was somewhat guilty, because at that time, he first confirmed that Li Qingshan was exiled from 9 regions, but he did not expect him to come back. No one was willing to provoke a strong enemy. Qiu Haitang didn't pursue the matter further. "All right, don't be angry. If your Highness can accompany me and explain these words to him, even if I have wronged you, I will definitely apologize to you." The left master put his palms together and stood outside the building. It was obvious that he was unwilling to enter this filthy place. Xiqing was only the representative of the Xia Kingdom, and the Xiliang Kingdom revered Buddhism. The left master, the supreme of Buddhism in the 9 states, was the core figure of the mission. Prince Songyang's ears were buzzing, as if he was bearing the weight of thousands of kilograms. He could only try his best to hold on, so how could he speak? As a Buddhist, the left master reprimanded him according to the Buddhist precepts. It was completely fair and square, and could not be refuted. "Master, don't talk nonsense. Our sect is also a sect that has been passed down for thousands of years. How can you say that It's a filthy place. Begonia's face was filled with anger. Whether it was the big or small formula or the rouge mind dyeing method, they all needed to be honed in the mortal world. This was their cultivation method. Hee hee, it's a strong rouge horse. I really want to ride it. Prince Sangyang. I didn't want to meddle in this matter, but since this woman said this name, I must fulfill your wish. If you don't succeed, I'm afraid I'll take it away from you. The Frost Wolf King crossed his arms and leaned against the door frame. He looked at Begonia from head to toe without hiding it. His tone was cold, and his hatred was even more obvious than Si Qing's. Li Qingshan made a trip to Shuangzhou. Not only did he help Gu Yenying take away the rock feather that he had been planning for many years, but he also beat him up and took away his Shuangzhou cauldron and the wolf totem, as well as a wolf fang necklace that looked like a sumaru ring. It was almost all of his savings. This deep hatred was like a mountain and a sea. The more barren a place was, the more powerful the demon clan was. It was the same in Thunder State. Other than the Shiliang Palace and the Big Wheel Temple, the demon clan was also a big force. The Frost Wolf King and the Thunder State Demon King were old acquaintances, so he was also in the envoy group. All three of them had a blood feud with Li Qingshan. Because of all kinds of coincidences, they came to the city of Buddha and heard the name Li Qingshan, which led to a disaster. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating everyone's face. Everyone's expression changed. In the crowd, Li Qingshan was shocked. Don't tell me this is the legendary luxurious gift bag. Heavens, I thank your 8 generations of ancestors. The Frost Wolf King felt a little uneasy with his strong instinct. He carefully sensed it, but it seemed to be an illusion. Then he focused his eyes on Begonia. Based on his identity, it was not appropriate for him to take revenge like this. But since he encountered it, he would not let it go easily. Li Qingshan, no matter how strong you are, you can't protect your woman now. But the lightning in Thunder State is really fierce. Chapter 1306. The torrential rain poured down. Li Qingshan was like a tiger in the forest, creeping forward silently. The left imperial preceptor's body glowed with a faint golden light, faintly turning into a golden bell that repelled the rain 3 feet away. Prince Sangyang was suppressed by the aura and didn't know what to do. The arrival of the Taizu Emperor meant that the Thunder State had to surrender. He couldn't deal with the 3 of them, be it in terms of status or strength. Even if he could do anything, no one would offend the Skyfrost Wolf King, Si Qing Crown Prince, and the great Xia dynasty behind them for a woman. Begonia's face was as calm as water, but she was fearless. She looked at the red ring on her wrist. Was everything really destined? At this moment, Li Qingshan walked out of the crowd. The left imperial preceptor suddenly shivered. A chill ran down his spine and straight to his head. Prince Sangyang was stunned for a moment as he looked at the man walking out of the rain. He looked like an ordinary drop of water that would melt into the rain at any time. He had a strange feeling that if he didn't focus on him, he would completely ignore his existence. Begonia also noticed the man walking out of the crowd and couldn't help but be stunned. Her peach blossom eyes were immediately covered with a layer of mist, becoming more and more misty. Her red lips moved as if she had thousands of words to say. A majestic bolt of lightning struck the building. The lightning tore through the darkness and was as bright as day. Boom! The thunder roared and the earth shook. The left imperial preceptor turned around and asked, "You are?" "Damn you!" Li Qingshan threw a punch. The left imperial preceptor's vision darkened. The iron fist filled his vision and blocked the heaven and earth. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on him. It was difficult to dodge and impossible to resist. Demon, how dare you? With a roar, layers of golden light burst out from his body. Like an endless tide on the coastline, he instantly pushed his 1,000-year cultivation to the extreme. The big red embroidered golden kasaya on his body suddenly swelled like an indestructible seawall. It was the treasure of the Lingua temple. The iron fist broke through the layers of golden light. As soon as it came into contact with the kasaya, it immediately shattered like a butterfly and gently imprinted on the left imperial preceptor's back. Li Qingshan retracted his fist and ignored him. He threw his head back and let out a long howl. Demonic chi soared into the sky, scattering the rain and tearing the dark clouds apart as he pounced toward the Skyfrost Wolf King. His eyes turned crimson like a tiger. Li Qingshan, the Skyfrost Wolf King, had just reacted to the situation. When he met those crimson eyes, he felt as if he had fallen into a nightmare. His mind surged, and his aura was seized. He was unable to control himself. Why? Why was he here? In an instant, he felt as if he had returned to thousands of years ago, when he was still a wild wolf. Facing a ferocious tiger on the hunt, he was just the unlucky prey. He couldn't help but want to retreat. I can't retreat. If I take even half a step back today, I will definitely die. He bared his fangs and howled as he pounced on Li Qingshan. It emitted a chilling aura. Everything was covered in a layer of white frost. Wolf and tiger, frost and fire, fangs and claws. The two monster kings were like two wild beasts pouncing on each other. The tiger stripes formed a king character on Li Qingshan's body. He unleashed the tiger demon's fury, unleashing a violent aura that dispersed the layers of frost. As an acquired demon, he unleashed a will that could destroy and destroy everything. Even a lion would use its full strength when hunting a rabbit. A thought suddenly appeared in the Skyfrost Wolf King's mind. I've lost. They had not even truly clashed, but their wills had already clashed countless times, defeating him countless times until he was completely subdued. This was no longer a clash between two ferocious beasts. Instead, it was an unlucky prey facing a terrifying predator. Even the thought of resisting had been crushed. With his mind stolen, his aura scattered, and Li Qingshan reached out and collapsed. He grabbed the Skyfrost Wolf King's neck with his left hand and plunged his right into his chest. He dug out a frosty white demon core and suppressed it with the spirit turtle. In just a single exchange, the renowned 10-demon king, the Skyfrost Wolf King, had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Li Qingshan. Let alone escape, he could not even detonate his demon core. It was truly a fate worse than death. The Skyfrost Wolf King was filled with fear. Impossible. How can my will, which has been tempered by hardship, be so fragile? I can't even defeat a guy who's not even a fraction of his age. As if he could hear his thoughts, Li Qingshan tossed him onto the ground and stepped on him. He sneered. That's because you're not a wolf. You're just a dog. Even that piece of trash over there is more of a wolf than you are. Si Qing, who had been referred to as trash, had the weakest cultivation and the slowest reactions. He only moved when Li Qingshan clashed with the Skyfrost Wolf King. He did not charge towards Li Qingshan, nor did he flee. Instead, he lunged towards Begonia. Only by capturing her as a hostage would he have a chance at survival. Begonia was only at the second heavenly tribulation. She was definitely not his opponent. Assimilate! Li Qingshan spread his fingers and bellowed. Si Qing froze in the air, completely immobilized like an insect in amber. Begonia's beautiful face was already very close to him, but she couldn't get any closer. She made up her mind and detonated her nascent soul. Li Qingshan, I'll kill this woman even if I have to die. I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. Destroy. Li Qingshan clenched his fist, and the air trembled. Si Qing was pulverized, and even his nascent soul was completely destroyed. Even Gong Yuan had to admit that she wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack from Li Qingshan. With such a huge difference in power, it was impossible for him to die with her. The lightning falling from the sky was blocked by the formation of the city of Buddha. Everyone inside and outside the building felt as if the lightning had exploded above their heads, and they all fell to the ground. In an instant, Li Qingshan had blasted the state teacher, defeated the Wolf King, and killed Si Qing. The sound of thunder lingered in the air, but it hadn't completely disappeared yet. The Skyfrost Wolf King knew that his life was in danger, and he roared with indignation, "Li Qingshan, kill me if you want. How dare you humiliate me?" "Humiliate you? Huh, I'm not as senseless as you. Wolves and dogs are the same family, and their bloodlines are the same. They are wolves that run in the wilderness and dogs that are domesticated and watch over people's homes. I've seen many monster kings, but it's rare to see someone as stupid and useless as you. If it weren't for the fact that you think I can't do anything to you just because you have the Chua dragon, how would you dare to bark here?" Li Qingshan's words were sharp, and he stomped hard on the Wolf King. The Skyfrost Wolf King spat out a mouthful of blood, and he could no longer maintain his human form. He reverted to his original form and lay on the ground like a dead dog. Foe of Buddha, despicable. The left imperial preceptor's face was as pale as paper. He stood outside the building with his palms together, and the torrential rain poured down on him. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth, and it was immediately washed away by the rain. "Bald donkey, this is how you plotted against my little, and, isn't it? Do you know the cycle of karma and retribution now, as a senior monk of the Buddhist sect? How could you watch these two pieces of trash bully an innocent girl? Not only did you not stop them, you even helped them. I only wish I could punch you a few more times." After punching the left imperial preceptor once, Li Qingshan no longer paid him any attention. He only treated the man as a dead man. The power of this punch was a combination of several divine arts and the 9 heaven life soil. It was far more terrifying than the ape demon annihilation technique. The left imperial preceptor's body trembled with rage and hatred. A crack climbed up his bald head, and his body crumbled like a clay statue. Floating astronomy. Chapter 1307. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Dread, and add me to support The Legend of the Great Sage. On the Dragonhead Mountain, in the royal palace of Grand Xia, Si Qing's life lamp was suddenly extinguished. Chua Long was alarmed and walked out of the hall, gazing at the starry sky with a solemn expression. Although he couldn't monitor the faraway Thunder Province, he could clearly sense the destruction of the diplomatic mission. Si Qing was several generations away from him and didn't have much of a relationship with him, but he was still a core member of the great Xia dynasty. The Skyfrost Wolf King had followed him for many years and had always been loyal. No one could compare to him. The left imperial advisor was the head of the Buddhist sections. Not only was he the core fighting force of the Great Xia, but he was also related to the layout of the human realm. The murderer was certain. Apart from that person, who else in the world could kill them? Who would dare to kill them? Immediately, an uncontrollable rage rose in him as he muttered that name, Li Qingshan. Suddenly, his heart trembled, and he raised his head, gazing into the depths of the sky. He caressed the Dragon Province cauldron in his hand and felt the immense and indescribable will of the world. Is it the will of the heavens? Otherwise, it would be too much of a coincidence. The diplomatic mission to Thunder Province wasn't a difficult mission, and it would only take 2 or 3 days at most. How could he have met Li Qingshan? As far as he knew, Li Qingshan had always been cultivating in the South Sea and couldn't have known about this diplomatic mission. Even if he knew, he wouldn't have stopped his cultivation because he didn't care about the left imperial advisor and the others. Chuolong took a deep breath and calmed the anger and hatred in his heart. With my cultivation, I shouldn't have such a strong emotional reaction. He understood that as long as they were in a world, they would be bound and influenced by all sorts of tangible and intangible things. Even though he was bound and influenced by all kinds of tangible and intangible restrictions, he was no exception. The heavens wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife, causing him and Li Qingshan to form an irreconcilable enmity. Humph, the heavens will have to submit to my will sooner or later. But this is good. The heavens are on my side. If I can kill that Li Qingshan, I will be blessed by the heavens, and the speed of refining the 9 provinces will be greatly increased. Li Qingshan, since you dare to stay, don't ever think of leaving Jiuzhou again. With lofty ambitions and restrained killing intent, he smashed the railing and cracked it. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of miles away, in the 1,000 Buddha city of Thunder Province, wisps of golden light flowed out from the cracks on the left advisor's body. It circulated and dissipated in midair, dyeing half of the mountain city golden. Countless residents knelt on the ground, kowtowing endlessly. They thought that this was the manifestation of the Buddha, but they had no idea that this was the end of a generation of monk kings. Li Qingshan extended his hand and fished out a shiny golden saraira as well as a sumaru ring. As the abbot of the Lingua Temple, there must be a lot of good things inside. Then he collected the Skyfrost Wolf King and Si Qing's sumaru rings with a wave of his hand. Actually, this kind of harvest was nothing to him now. But kill your enemies and take everything they have. It was always a happy thing. The left imperial tutor's strength was the strongest, not to mention his temperament and will. As a religious fanatic, he was not someone the Skyfrost Wolf King could compare to. At least, he would not be defeated. Otherwise, even if he called him old dog 100 times, he would still bare his teeth at him. He would have to turn him into a dead dog. Prince Songyang recalled the path he had walked and couldn't help but sweat profusely. Actually, Tantric Buddhism emphasized asceticism the most. There were very few who practiced the great joy Zen because it was too easy to go berserk. Only those with great wisdom and determination could cultivate, and he believed that he was such a person with great wisdom and determination. He had never thought much of those ascetics. Now he realized how foolish he was. He enjoyed the pleasures of the world while thinking that he was untainted by dust. He was really possessed. With my talent and comprehension, if I persisted in the ascetic practice, I might have ascended in my 3rd life. Why would I need to reincarnate 7 times? If I couldn't realize this, I might not be able to ascend in this life. How many more lives could that little soul of mine last? Thinking of this, he put his palms together and bowed deeply to Li Qingshan. Amitabha, thank you for breaking my great joy Zen. From now on, I don't dare to call myself a love monk. He took a deep look at Chiu Haitang with undisguised adoration, but he saw himself in her peach blossom-like eyes. He resolutely threw down that page of love poem and walked out of the door. In the rain, he could hear him chanting loudly, "All love will pass. Impermanence is hard to last. Life is full of fear. Life is at stake in the morning dew. Love gives birth to worry. Love gives birth to fear. If I am separated from my lover, there is no worry nor fear." From now on, Lai Zhou lost a love monk and gained a new ascetic monk. Li Qingshan pondered. So it's the great joy Zen. I've heard so much about you. Interesting. After I broke his technique, he wants to thank me. No wonder the Mahesvara could become a great deity of Buddhism. But the real Mahesvara demon master probably wouldn't be as gentle as me when facing the Dharma. Once he couldn't withstand the test, even if he didn't die, he would become a demon. I'm not afraid of becoming a demon, but if there is no worry or fear, wouldn't life be very boring? Begonia looked at Prince Songyang's back disappearing in the rain and murmured, I saw his infatuation. He wasn't as sincere as he thought, but I didn't expect it to be like this. Li Qingshan said loudly, Just now, who was so bold to wrongly accuse me? Am I, Li Qingshan, such a narrow-minded person? It's just that my beloved woman is being pursued. What's the big deal? When Begonia heard him say beloved woman in public, her cheeks couldn't help but blush, making her look gorgeous. She bit her red lips and said in a low voice, I've wrongly accused you. Since you're wrong, you have to be punished. Li Qingshan carried her in his arms and strode upstairs. Begonia moaned, but didn't resist. Li Qingshan smiled and whispered in her ear, Where's your boudoir? I don't know. Li Qingshan raised his head and sniffed. Found it. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and the sky was clean as if it had been washed. The stars were bright and dazzling. In the hall, everyone was still in shock and looked at each other, like a flock of frightened sheep. Even though the danger had passed, they didn't know what to do. The women suddenly had a new dream lover, and felt that all the men around them were not good enough to look at. The men also lost interest and left, but there was a faint feeling of blood boiling, thinking that men should be like this. Li Qingshan stepped into the boudoir that was filled with fragrance. It was not the smell of any perfume, but the smell of her body. He couldn't help but bury his head in her neck and took a deep breath. Begonia's ears and temples were rubbing against each other, and she also felt his body temperature, breath. Her mind was intoxicated, but she still couldn't believe it. After waiting for so long, it's finally here? My novel, The Legend of the Great Sage, will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now. Click on the plus sign on the top right. Add friends, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating astronomy. I love Monk. Like Prince Songyang really is an anomaly, but he won't do anything too excessive. Li Qingshan listened with a smile. Her voice was soft, sweet, and filled with affection. Even if he listened to it for 3 days and 3 nights, he would not get tired, not to mention that she was in his arms, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. Hai Tang already knows how to protect herself. I'm very glad. Humph, I obviously know how to protect myself. When I was Sect Master Lu, you were still a wild kid. Sai, I'm only protecting myself like this so that you can bully me like this. What's the point? Begonia glanced at his large hand that wandered around her body and endured the throbbing in her heart. I haven't asked you yet. Why did you come to Thunder State? Li Qingshan lifted her chin and pressed his forehead against hers. Their eyes met. I could sense that you were thinking of me, and I also sensed that you were in danger, so I came looking for you. Really? Li Qingshan smiled. If I lie, may the heavens strike me with lightning. Why would the current you be afraid of being struck by lightning? You're probably eager for the heavenly tribulation to descend and ascend. Begonia said disapprovingly, but her eyes were filled with tenderness. She took out a jade talisman from her bosom. It still carried her warmth. This was what Li Qingshan had left for her. She could crush it and send a message when she was in danger. Just now, when she was hesitating about whether she should do this or not, he walked out from the crowd. It was like he had jumped out of her head. Her emotions were indescribable. She could not help but think back to the many times they had met and how he had saved her from danger time and time again. Li Qingshan thanked the spirit turtle's omen once again. If he had waited for her to crush the jade talisman before rushing to Thunder State, the situation would have been very passive. It would not have been as easy and casual. Who doesn't want to ascend among cultivators? Begonia suddenly thought that if he ascended with her weak cultivation, she would never be able to catch up to him. Amidst this endless sweetness, she felt a stabbing pain from the depths of her heart. She could not help herself, and 2 clear streams of tears fell like rain. What's wrong? Li Qingshan was surprised. He hurriedly wiped away her tears, but the more he wiped, the more tears flowed. Begonia frowned and shook her head. It's nothing. I just thought of Prince Sanyang's poem. All love meets, impermanence rarely lasts. Love gives birth to sorrow, love gives birth to fear. I thought I had already gotten over it, but I never thought I would be so reluctant to part. We've just met, and I already feel the pain of parting. You really know how to ruin my cultivation. Seeing her like this, Li Qingshan felt sorry for her. Don't listen to his nonsense. People will die eventually. Is it because we are destined to die that we have to suffer and struggle every day? Chapter 13:10. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Kdred, and follow me to give me more support. Yes, that's right. When you're alive, live well. When you're happy, live to your heart's content. When the day comes that you have to die, die calmly. Li Qingshan could not help but touch her face when he saw how cute she was. You really can't grow up. Begonia felt that his words were like knives. Although they were simple, they easily cut through the chaos in her heart. She did not know how to deal with that matter. Seeing how he doted on her like a child, she felt even sweeter. I've changed a lot. You're clearly no different from back then, but you treat me like a child. Is that so? Li Qingshan touched his cheeks. With his demonic and divine bloodline, even if he did nothing, his lifespan would still be over 10,000 years. A mere century was nothing at all. Obviously, he would not age with his current appearance. Of course, Begonia was not talking about his appearance, but his heart. The human heart was constantly changing, growing, and even aging. In fact, he had experienced far more things than Begonia. All sorts of scenes passed by like smoke. He was chased to death by the Dragon King of the Sea and resurrected from the Phoenix's nirvana. He wandered and searched in the illusion created by the Sea King of Mirage Sea, Shun Mengdai. He was a husband, a father, the lord of the world, and a world god in the small world. He traversed billions of kilometers of the void and was with the stars in the sky. Anyone who experienced all of these might have a drastic change in personality. At the very least, they would become a little more mature. However, he did not change. He was not mature and did not age. Instead, a lively and cheerful ape fiend was born in his heart. He became more and more willful. He kissed her ear gently and smiled. Isn't that good? It's better than changing after being scolded by someone. I'll give up what I love and walk another path. Do you think everyone is as stubborn as you? Qiu Haitang raised the corner of her lips, her eyes filled with admiration. Sometimes the smarter a person is, the easier it is to get lost. Fortunately, I'm not that smart. Speaking of which, what the hell was a love monk? This great joy Zen was basically a heretical path. Since he was a monk, just eat vegetarian and pray to Buddha. Why are you thinking about women? Don't look down on him. Prince Sanyang is known as the 7 Lives of Passion monk. He is the dream lover of countless girls in Thunder State. Not only is he infatuated with me, but he can also compose poems. I don't know how good it is. Sigh, it's a pity that I met a demon too late. Qiu Haitang adjusted her tone and pushed the hair on her left shoulder to the back. Her last sigh was filled with regret. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Compose a poem? Yes, I kept them all. There's a thick stack. Begonia took out a stack of poems from her sumaru ring. He said playfully, Do you want me to read it to you? That way, you can broaden your horizons and learn what true love is. Sure. Li Qingshan licked his lips. His aura was already somewhat dangerous. Begonia did not care and continued to tease the tiger's whiskers. She cleared her throat and began to read, as expected of the love monk's love poem. The words were elegant, and the rhythm was elegant. Moreover, it was filled with admiration and admiration for her. She read half a poem. Suddenly, she let out an N and stopped. She felt his large, scorching hand directly under her shirt. That soft and delicate touch was no longer blocked by clothes. Li Qingshan felt his fingertips sink into a ball of softness, as if it was about to melt. He blew a breath into her ear and said with a smile, Why aren't you reading? Begonia snorted. She grabbed his mischievous hand and continued to read in a fit of pique. If you have the ability, then copy it. Yo, I saw through you, so you're angry from embarrassment. Begonia laughed. Suddenly, through her clothes, she pressed down on his hand that was covering her chest and pressed it down deeply. Li Qingshan did not use so much force, afraid that he would hurt her tender skin. But he heard her say seriously, This heart of mine will not change. Are you willing to give your heart to me? How could Li Qingshan say he was not willing? Don't regret it. Begonia seemed to be implying something. I have no regrets in my life. Begonia stared at him and suddenly smiled. Then she made up her mind. Since you said so, you can't blame me. I'm doing this to gain your affection. Blinking her eyes, her red lips opened and closed, and her voice was clear and firm. Take me. Li Qingshan could not bear it anymore, and kissed her red lips that were as tender as the petals of a flower. The novel will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now. Click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. To be continued. Li Qingshan had no idea that he had already fallen into a yearning net. His heart was filled with tenderness and concern, which instead overwhelmed his lust. He felt like she seemed to be suffering from chi deviation, so he used the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression to calm her down. Begonia cleared her head slightly. She could not help but feel extremely embarrassed. She turned her head away. What are you looking at? Even the tone of her voice had changed. It seemed like she was about to cry. Li Qingshan felt like a cat had scratched his heart. It was truly indescribable. If it were not for the fact that he was worried about her, his bestial nature would have erupted already. Begonia also felt like the yearning dye, the red thread, had reached a point where she had no choice but to use it. She felt both anxious and embarrassed, conflicted in all sorts of pain. If she begged him, how was she supposed to say it? She gritted her teeth. It's useless. What? Li Qingshan was taken aback. He had never heard of something like that in his life. He was unable to wrap his head around it at all. How useless? Fuck. Li Qingshan raised an eyebrow. Without any more hesitation, he slid his index finger across her chest. Her bodice, together with the belt of flowers, split open, and a pair of jade rabbits leapt out. She was even prouder than he had imagined, but her waist just happened to be slender and slender, forming an enchanting curve. His heart skipped a beat. His index finger slid across her smooth abdomen and continued downwards, splitting the bright red dress and the silk underpants together. He felt a hint of wetness on the tip of his finger, and a soft moan rang out by his ear. She did not try to hide her beauty at all, lying on the torn clothes and scattered love poems like a white goat. She was dyed red, giving off a soul-stirring charm. At this moment, Li Qingshan forgot about everything around him. He grabbed her round, firm thighs and separated her tightly closed legs. He pressed forward, knocking open the door and entering the flower path. Begonia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her tightly shut eyes suddenly snapped open, and a sliver of pain flashed through them. A clear tear fell from the corner of her eye, like a drop of dew falling from a peach blossom petal. The drop of red was dyed red by yearning. In that moment, Li Qingshan was drowned by the tide-like feelings of yearning. His heart seemed to be entangled by an invisible thread, tightening bit by bit. He lost control of his mind. As a result, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. The spirit turtle instinctively tried to suppress it, refusing to lose control like this. No matter how wondrous the heart-dying art was, it was only a second heavenly tribulation cultivation method. No matter how deep her yearning was, it was no match for the deathly stillness of the deep sea. Even the waves of the ocean could be suppressed, let alone the ripples of emotions. This was the path of cultivation. There was no such thing as true love being invincible. There was only a clash of spirit against spirit, a clash of strength against strength. The victor was the master, and the loser was the slave. Begonia seemed to sense something. Her eyes became rather flustered, and her body trembled uncontrollably. She seemed extremely weak. If this was a war, she would have already lost everything. But why did she have to treat this as a war? Li Qingshan smiled and let go of his mind. He bent over and merged with her completely, kissing her deeply on the lips. He allowed the thread of red to stir up huge waves in his mind. He embraced her warm body and accepted all of her yearning. He allowed her to turn him into anything. This was not a curse, but the bliss of the boundless secular world. Perhaps the appearance was illusory, but it was definitely not fake. Li Qingshan felt the miniature world in his body being activated as well. The ape demon scratched its head in joy. The ape demon transformation that it had just broken through began to circulate once more. Suddenly, he came to a realization. The ape demon had always been obsessed with illusion, chasing after the moon in the water foolishly. It was not as rational and patient as the spirit turtle, completely ignoring the great principle of appearance is emptiness. Emptiness is appearance. It allowed itself to sink into the joy that was destined to be lost. There was no need to feel disappointed. There was no need to be afraid of losing. We had nothing in the first place. If life was like a dream, why not throw yourself into it a little more seriously? When the moon was fished out, a new moon would be born in the water. The novel, The Legend of the Great Sage, will have even more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now. Click on the plus sign at the top right, add friends, search for the official account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1312. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account Dread and add me to support The Legend of the Great Sage. Qingshan. Begonia moaned softly. She had never felt so happy in her life. It was as if her soul had flown to the heavens and reached the pure land of ultimate bliss. All the pain she had endured was compensated tenfold, or even 100-fold. With the red thread of yearning connecting them, their minds were connected. Li Qingshan also felt endless joy and understood all of her thoughts, including what the red thread of yearning was. At this moment, The delicate body in his arms trembled. A gentle and pure aura flowed into his body through their connection. Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. He did not expect her primordial yin energy to be so pure and contain such a strange power. He had the experience of dual cultivation with Gong Yuan before. Gong Yuan's cultivation was far above hers, but the benefits she received were not as good. Moreover, this power was surging and endless, as if it wanted to hollow out her body. Her aura rapidly weakened, and her white skin was dyed a sickly red. But she was completely unaware of it, or perhaps she was deliberately letting it go. Her snow-white arms hugged him tightly, and her legs wrapped around his waist. She did not care about her deformed breasts, as if she wanted to melt her entire body into his. In an instant, she transferred all of her cultivation into Li Qingshan's body. It was not just a golden elixir, but also all of her essence, qi, and spirit. Li Qingshan's mind changed, and he unreservedly absorbed all the primordial yin energy. Then, he used the small world in his body to absorb, transform, and refine it. Then, he kissed her lips again, transferring a scorching aura to her, forming a perfect cycle. So this is the real dual cultivation. Gong Yuan and I just happen to have compatible cultivation techniques. I helped her suppress her inner demons and obtained the power of the ruins and from her. Even if we did not have intercourse, it would have the same effect. Now, she has almost become my human cauldron, which can be used to collect yin to replenish yang. Similarly, I am also her human cauldron, refining her essence and collecting yang to replenish yin. Be it Buddhism or Taoism, they all had dual cultivation techniques. It could be seen how amazing this dual cultivation technique was. Even monks and Taoists wanted to study it. It was just that it was too easy to get lost in this Tao technique. Therefore, they were not welcomed by Orthodox Buddhists and were even condemned as heretics. But regardless of whether they liked it or not, yin-yang dual cultivation was one of the 3,000 great Taoists, and no one could deny it. It belonged to the dual cultivation school of Taoism, which was also divided into two schools. One was to cast a wide net and use all the opposite sex in the world as human cauldrons, plucking yin to nourish yang or plucking yang to nourish yin. This cultivation method allowed one to progress extremely quickly. It was just that the aura he had plucked was mixed, and it took time to refine it, so it was easy for him to reach a bottleneck. The advantage was that he had enough experience, so it was not easy for him to fall into the trap of love. In the world of cultivation, there was no concept of men and women that mortals had. Even if they kept their virginity, it was basically for the sake of cultivation, not for the so-called chastity. They were actually very casual about such matters. However, there were many demonic Tao cultivators. He was too lazy to spend so much energy to cultivate a suitable cauldron. He did not hesitate to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. He destroyed the life foundation of the cauldron and even plucked them to death, which was why he gained so much notoriety. However, compared to those demonic Tao cultivators who massacred people and refined souls, he was not considered a great evil. The other was to find a suitable partner to become a dual cultivation partner. This would be beneficial to both of them, and their auras would be abnormally pure. Such a partner was not easy to find. His talent and cultivation could not be too bad. Otherwise, he would become a burden. He also had to be compatible and could not be forced at all. He also had to pay a huge psychological price, and it was easy for him to fall into the trap of love. It was especially dangerous for female cultivators. Speaking of which, there were not many male cultivators who were willing to take this path. As the saying went, men can be relied on, pigs can climb trees. No matter what era or world, men will become bad when they have money was the truth of the world. And cultivators were not just rich. In fact, no matter man or woman, no one could guarantee that their heart would not change on the path of cultivation. Once there was a problem with his dual cultivation partner, or himself, it would be much more tragic than a divorce. Damage to the soul would be considered light. And from then on, he would no longer believe that love was absolute. It would be better to take the previous path from the beginning. Staining the red thread with rouge could be considered as a great guarantee for female cultivators who took this path. However, the staining the heart with rouge technique mainly focused on the first path. There were many techniques that could properly govern the harem. It could be said that one could be a slut, but also a virtuous woman. Most of the sect's disciples chose the first path. They could choose a suitable cauldron from among the people who came, and they could also obtain a large amount of resources. They could even live happily for a while. It could be said that it was beneficial, but not costly. However, Begonia was different. Not only was her talent extraordinary, but she also valued the word love more than anything else. The boundless secular world was only a way to sharpen her temperament. She wholeheartedly waited for her Mr. Right. Otherwise, her cultivation would have been much higher than it was now. Li Qingshan held her in his arms and lightly stroked the long black hair on her back. "You're really a fool. If I refused your red thread of yearning, not only would your cultivation be destroyed, your life would also be in danger. Have you never thought that you would fail? I've thought about it, giving everything to you like this, and then dying in your arms isn't bad either." Begonia didn't care in the slightest. Li Qingshan felt that her thoughts were purely from the bottom of her heart. There wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood, and there wasn't even any fear. Instead, there was a kind of romantic and dreamy color to it. "Idiot, consider my feelings for a bit." However, you didn't refuse. The corners of Begonia's lips rose slightly. "You don't blame me? I've already fallen for your trick. From now on, I'll be wholeheartedly devoted to you, and I'll be completely obedient. How can I blame you? Didn't you already plan it all out?" At this point, how could the little thoughts in her heart be hidden from Li Qingshan? It was really infuriating and funny at the same time. Then, will it be of any use? Begonia probed. She had endured so much pain and taken such a huge risk just to firmly hold onto his heart. From then on, they would be together, never to be separated. "It's useless," Li Qingshan judged, without holding back. His temperament had been tempered, and compared to the ape demon's stupidity, the bull demon's stubbornness was even more bone-deep. How could he be restrained so easily? "Damn it, what kind of lousy technique is this? It caused me to suffer for so many years. So it was all a lie." Begonia was greatly disappointed. If it was just to become dual cultivation partners with him, there wouldn't be so much trouble. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, her eyes suddenly widened. How could she have such a thought? Her tone was completely wrong. "It seems like it's still useful." Li Qingshan chuckled. This red thread of yearning had indeed made their hearts and minds match. Their connection was even closer than that of ordinary dual cultivation partners. He was indeed deeply infatuated with her. However, rather than saying that he was controlled by the technique, it would be better to say that he was moved by her feelings. Dual cultivation partners influenced each other. She was just a small river, but he was a vast ocean. It was needless to say who influenced who. Begonia still wanted to say something, but Li Qingshan grabbed her legs with both hands and pressed her under his body. Her body was almost folded in half, and he began to conquer her. The blazing fire of lust instantly ignited her. She could no longer think about anything else. At the same time, a majestic aura surged into her body, and the seawater began to flow backward. The aura on Begonia's body skyrocketed, filling her limbs and bones. The rouge heart shone with unprecedented light, and even her body was being tempered and strengthened continuously. Although she didn't achieve the goal of completely taming Li Qingshan, but a powerful dual cultivation partner was of great help to cultivation. Li Qingshan's cultivation was far higher than hers. They were more than a big realm apart. The small world in his body was almost equivalent to a super furnace. If not for the fear that she couldn't bear it, it wouldn't be difficult for her to go through 3 heavenly tribulations. For cultivators, this was the most important thing. Only a weirdo like her would tame Li Qingshan as her first goal. This was not opportunistic. For this day, she had prepared her whole life and sacrificed everything. It could be said to be a great perseverance and a great blessing. That thought that was different from ordinary people was more important than great wisdom. The spring tide surged in the building, and the moonlight was as bright as water. However, the Shiliang Palace at the top of the mountain was silent. Li Qingshan's existence. It made everyone feel uneasy, even if he said he didn't mean any harm. But who could sleep well when a fierce tiger was lying on the bed? The king of Shiliang stepped into the main hall and closed the door with a wave of his sleeve. The main hall was deep and dark, and only the amethyst in the middle of the main hall glowed with a faint light. The king of Shiliang bowed respectfully to the amethyst. "Fellow cultivator, what can I do for you?" The figure of Chuo Long appeared on the amethyst. His power was not enough to interfere with a desolate place like Lijo, but the Xia kingdom naturally had a way to contact the lords of various states. The king of Shiliang was nervous. The Xia kingdom's diplomatic corps was destroyed in the city of Buddha, and this responsibility could not be avoided. If Chuo Long ordered him to attack Li Qingshan, what should he do? It was safer to be a fence-sitter, but he would inevitably be bullied on both sides. Unexpectedly, Chuo Long did not ask about Si Qing and the others, but only asked, "Where is he?" The king of Shiliang answered honestly, "He is still in the city at a place called the Tower, meeting with the headmaster, Begonia." "Ha! A disaster is imminent, and you still don't know it, and you are still immersed in those mediocre women." Chuo Long seemed to have everything under his control, as if he was not affected by the massacre of the diplomatic corps. The king of Shiliang had seen Begonia many times, and he did not think much of the term mediocre women. If it was not for his concerns, he would also want to bring her into the palace. Reality proved that his concerns were right. It was best not to look at Li Qingshan's women to avoid trouble. He thought to himself, "I don't know if he is facing a disaster. If you want me to help you punish him, I'm afraid I will be the first to face a disaster." Chuo Long seemed to see through his thoughts. "Don't worry, I won't let you do something like throwing an egg against a rock. He is my opponent." The king of Shiliang heaved a sigh of relief. "Then why did you come?" Chuo Long said, "I have a declaration of war. Help me spread it throughout Lijo, and let everyone know." Declaration of war? The king of Shiliang was shocked. If a declaration of war was useful, why did he need cultivation? Was it just to vent his anger? That was too unwise. Not only would he not be able to hurt Li Qingshan, but he would also expose his hostility and be mocked by him. "You don't have to be surprised. You will understand in the future." He thought that he could use the destruction of the world to threaten me, and instead help to gather the hearts of the people. On the 15th of October, on the day of my wedding, I will offer sacrifices to the heavens at Dragon Head Mountain, gather the heroes of the world, and kill this evil person. The king of Shiliang immediately understood Chuo Long's meaning, and was shocked. He was indeed the first emperor. If that was the case, Li Qingshan would not be able to survive. He lowered his head deeply. "Yes, your majesty." The novel The Legend of the Great Sage, we'll have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now. Click on the plus sign on the top right. Add friends, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating astronomy. The dragon fights in the wild. Its blood is yellow and black. The dark cry causes the mountains to collapse. The roar causes the wind and clouds to change. The anger of all living beings destroys the evil. The dragon Chi rushes the world to peace. The deity carried the will of heaven, stepped on the golden dragon, and led all living beings to kill the demon king. He was truly the savior of the world. My emperor said, "I swear to kill this villain, as per the law." The face of the deity suddenly became clear. It was really the ancestor of Great Xia, Si Long. In his dreams, these scenes repeatedly replayed. Li Qingshan frowned, as if he was trapped in a nightmare. He really transformed into that terrifying demon king, filled with a terrifying will to destroy everything, and wanted to fight with Si Long to determine the winner. However, every time, the dream collapsed at this point, and he returned to the beginning of the declaration, once again experiencing this dream that was both real and illusory. There was a stuffy breath in his chest, as if there was a mountain pressing on it. Li Qingshan, are you afraid? Li Qingshan, are you afraid? Li Qingshan, are you afraid? A voice drifted, repeatedly echoing in his dreams. Sometimes it was an old man, sometimes it was a young child, sometimes it was a cold questioning, and sometimes it was a light teasing. Li Qingshan instantly calmed down. "That's not me. What's there to be afraid of?" A butterfly fluttered into the dream. 7 colors flickered, flowing light fluttered, and laughter rang out. All the scenes froze, collapsed, and turned into a boundless golden wheat field. In the waist-high wheat field, he was no longer the terrifying demon king, but the village boy again. He shouted angrily, "Shen Mengdai, it's your doing!" It was rare for him to sleep, but someone still appeared in his dreams, and it was this kind of nightmare. It was really despicable. The boy suddenly grabbed, and the butterfly passed through his fingers, flying around him. "What do you think of the story just now?" The boy asked, "Was that declaration written by Si Long?" Guess what happened in the end? I understand. He wanted to gather the hearts of the world to help him refine the 9 provinces. He, who was once the god of the world and the king of the world, immediately understood Si Long's strategy. This was something impossible. Even the revered chivalrous king in the small world couldn't do it. The hearts of people were complicated and changeable, not to mention the hearts of the people. However, Si Long had the chance to do it, not only because of the 5,000 years of foundation of Great Xia and the blessing of the heavens, but more importantly, a common enemy. Without a world-destroying demon king, there would be no savior. Fear and hatred were far more powerful than worship and love to unite the hearts of people. This was an unbreakable plot. From the moment he flipped the table, he stood on the opposite side of the world. Chapter 13-14. Time passed, and the clouds changed. The 15th of October arrived in the blink of an eye. What a heavy snow! Amidst the praises, a man ascended to the peak of the mountain. The biting cold wind rolled up large snowflakes and hit his bare chest. It was as if he had fallen into a ball of fire and immediately evaporated, shrouding him in a hazy mist. His face was blurred, but his tall and straight figure was like a red flag inserted on the peak of the mountain, his clothes and red hair flying in the wind. He looked around and saw that the world had turned into a world of ice and snow. Everything was white, leaving only a boundless expanse of snow. It was not yet dawn, but it was already snow white. However, if a mortal was here, they would not be able to see more than 10 steps and would be frozen into an ice sculpture in less than 15 minutes. His scarlet eyes focused. His gaze pierced through the snow and saw a white palace surrounded by mountains. It was not because it was covered in snow. There was not a single snowflake on the palace. It was not snow white either, but a warm and gentle white, as if it had been carved out of white jade. On the archway in front of the palace, the words Jasper Palace were engraved. The writing was extremely gentle. As soon as one saw the character, one could not help imagining what kind of person the writer was. It was undoubtedly a woman, but it was hard to say what kind of woman it was. He could not help but think of the woman holding the umbrella in his dream, as well as that faint smile. He still could not be sure if it was an illusion created by Shun Mengdai, the clam king of Mirage Sea, or the owner of this Jasper Palace, the nine-tailed fox queen. Thinking of this, he took out a large cauldron from his Sumeru ring and filled it with water. Then he threw a skinned dog into the water. Then he added in various ingredients such as onions, ginger, cinnamon, and fragrant leaves. Of course, some might say that it was a wolf, the king of the Frost Prefecture, the Skyfrost Wolf King. But in his cauldron, it was just a dog. Even though the Yao core had been taken out, the flesh and bones were filled with spiritual energy. There was no need to process it, not even to bleed it. The soup used to cook the meat was water from the ruins of End. He had asked Gong Yuan for it, and the dog meat fell into it. Ice was formed on it first. Fortunately, this dog meat had an extraordinary origin. Otherwise, even pig iron would freeze and shatter into pieces if it fell into it. The cauldron was a magic treasure for concocting pills. Otherwise, it would not have been cooked at all. The value of such a magic treasure for alchemy was extremely high. It was worth more than 10 ordinary magic treasures. Moreover, it was a spoil of war obtained from the left advisor. Even the various condiments were spirit grasses cultivated by the agriculture school, paired with various precious spirit medicines. He could not remember where they had come from. It seemed to have come from the Sumeru ring of that agriculture school Grand Master during the Battle of Great Buddha Mountain. After the man finished all the preparation work, he raised his head and looked at the sky. "Get down here." With a flash of brilliance, a young man descended from the sky. He was dressed in 7-colored clothes and had an exquisite crown on his head. His hair was meticulously combed to the back of his head, making him seem even more handsome and extraordinary. He had the air of a king. She gracefully bowed to the man. "Big Daddy." Li Qingshan smiled and asked, "Your subordinates didn't stop you?" Li Fengyuan's face reddened. That day, he had been obstructed by the feather men. He felt a little guilty towards Li Qingshan for not doing his best to save Little, and he patted his chest and said, "No matter what others say, I will definitely lend you a helping hand. Old man, even if you want to destroy the world, I will accompany you to the end." The feathered people would definitely not be willing to participate in the war. Even if they had to choose a side, they would definitely not choose Li Qingshan. After all, if the world was destroyed, there was no point in floating in the sky. Li Qingshan really felt that he was a little like the great Demon King in the War Declaration. Originally, he felt that the Demon King in the various stories was all kinds of cruel and vicious, yet he had a group of smart and powerful supporters. He felt that it was incomprehensible, but now he understood a little. However, he did not feel that Li Fengyuan had wronged him regarding the matter of Little, and even as father and son, they were still individuals. They had their own judgments and choices. There was no need for them to be like mortals who played the role of filial piety and learned to be grateful. He lightly patted Li Fengyuan's head. "Who asked you to accompany me to destroy the world? Quickly cook it." "Ah, I need to conserve my strength. This meat is not easy to cook. I need to use your phoenix fire in case the taste is not good enough." Li Qingshan explained. "Seriously?" Li Fengyuan asked in disbelief. "You called me here just to ask me to cook meat for you?" I am the divine bird, feathered people king, after all. So much nonsense. Do you want to eat it? Yes. Li Fengyuan immediately refined the large cauldron and activated the phoenix fire to cook the meat. In a moment, the water boiled and gurgled. A strange fragrance spread out. Turn the fire down. Yes. This noble phoenix became the dog, meat chef obediently, and looked at the cauldron with envy. Li Qingshan held his chin and pondered. Li Fengyuan did not dare to disturb him, but he heard him muttering to himself, "As the great demon king, how can I not have the 4 heavenly kings? I got it." Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and pointed at Li Fengyuan. "I confer you the cooking heavenly king. Li Fengyuan, do you have any objections?" "No, no. Then what kind of heavenly king am I?" Gu Yening suddenly appeared on the mountain peak and walked over elegantly. Li Fengyuan was shocked by her. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that someone could be so fast. "You are the wind, look out, heavenly king," Li Qingshan said confidently. "Oh, am I in charge of keeping watch?" Gu Yening came to the front of the large cauldron and sighed. "My poor Uncle Wolf. Not only was he killed, he also had to be sacrificed." She took a deep breath and said, "It smells so good." Li Qingshan smiled and said, "If I die, I can be fried, cooked, and made into a feast. It's better than rotting in the ground and being fed to the insects. Then I will definitely eat everything, not even a mouthful of soup." A voice came from afar. After saying the last word, the person had already sat in front of the cauldron and was full of murderous intent. He licked his lips and looked at Li Qingshan, as if trying to distinguish which piece of meat on his body was more delicious. Li Fengyuan's heart trembled. He felt like he was facing a great enemy and instinctively became alert. Li Qingshan smiled and said, "Isn't this the bird-shooting heavenly king?" "Don't give me such a bad nickname." Luo Ho Xiaoming glared at Li Qingshan, his murderous intent condensing the wind and snow. He had gone through 3 heavenly tribulations and had grown a lot taller, as expected of a natural god. And one who had been a god, his cultivation speed was like that of a wild dog released from its leash. Li Fengyuan felt the blood in his body freeze, as if he was looking at a boundless sea of corpses. He was no match for this person with just this aura. When did the 9 provinces have such a peerless master? Li Qingshan did not seem to feel it. He dug his ear with his little finger and said, "It's too late. Don't delay the work of the meat-cooking heavenly king. You still want to eat." The clear sound of the bell pierced through the stagnant, murderous intent towards Luo Ho Xiaoming. "Finally, I can eat something decent." Luo Ho Xiaoming instantly retracted his murderous intent as if it had never existed. Regardless of whether it was this guy in front of him or the white-bone successor, neither could be suppressed by their auras. However, if that wasn't the case, he would not be sitting here. Li Qingshan revealed a gentle smile and said, "My last heavenly king is here." Little and floated over and landed gracefully beside Li Qingshan. Li Fengyuan looked at the 3 heavenly kings and suddenly felt that it was an honor for him to be able to become the meat-cooking heavenly king. Moreover, he had gotten it through the back door. Floating astronomy. Chapter 13-15. Li Fengyuan calmed down a lot when he thought about how he was cooking the Skyfrost Wolf King, one of the 10 demonic kings. He comforted himself. "It's not that my job is too lowly. It's just that big old dad doesn't know how to give names. The Skyfrost Wolf King is called the Wolf God, so I'm the cooking god Li Fengyuan." He felt like he was a lot more domineering, but he didn't dare to mention this to Li Qingshan. He could only keep it to himself. The aroma was getting thicker and thicker. Even gods couldn't stand still after 3 rolls of dog meat. It's about time. Luo Ho Xiaoming couldn't help but say, Azuras loved good food and wine. The sky was getting brighter. Dawn was coming soon. Yes, let me have a taste. Li Qingshan raised his ending flower blade. This huge blade was clearly not suitable for cutting meat. If it continued to fall, it would definitely split the cauldron in half. Good boy, I'll make you the meat-cutting king. Who wants to be the meat-cutting king? The ending flower blade soul said angrily. It shrunk the blade into a short blade. Open the pot. Li Qingshan ordered. Li Fengyuan opened the cauldron. Steam billowed with a strong aroma, and a beam of spiritual light shot into the sky. Don't tell me this is a dish from the legends. Li Qingshan could not help but grip his dying flower blade firmly. In fact, many precious pills would emit spiritual light when they came out of the cauldron. After all, so many spiritual herbs were used, and they were filled with spirit qi. The ingredients used in this cauldron of soup were extremely luxurious. It wasn't strange at all that it had such an effect. Li Qingshan cut a piece of dog meat with a determined heart, with a thought. The soup floated in front of him. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. It was as if a beam of spiritual light passed through his temples, and an extremely delicious taste bloomed on his tongue. A warm current flowed into his stomach. The dog meat was tender and chewy. Even with his teeth, he had to chew a few times before he could swallow it. He took out a jar of 1,000-year spirit wine from somewhere and took a deep gulp. The world of ice and snow seemed to turn into a scorching summer. Awesome! Li Qingshan gave Li Fengyuan a thumbs up. As expected of my king of cooking meat. Li Fengyuan gathered his courage and said, You can also call him the cooking god, heavenly king. What kind of name is that? Li Qingshan did not think much of it. They began to distribute the wine and meat. The 4 heavenly kings each had a share, and the atmosphere immediately became lively. Li Fengyuan didn't care whether he was called Heavenly King of Cooking or Heavenly King of Cooking. He ate without any manners, little, and was mainly responsible for gnawing on the bones. Actually, with just a glance, the bones in his hands would turn into samadhi flames of white bone and then be sucked into his mouth. Li Qingshan rubbed her head tenderly. Cultivating the path of white bone and great beauty had deprived her of many pleasures in life. Then he handed the imperial advisor of the left Sarira to her. You can have this as a side dish. Gu Yenying smiled and said, Most people who attend weddings will have to leave their stomachs full for a feast. Instead, we started eating first. Hee, dog meat can't make it to the banquet. I'm afraid the host won't welcome an unwelcome guest like me. I'd better eat and drink to my heart's content before visiting. Must you go? Li Qingshan smiled and raised his wine goblet, clinking it against hers. I must go. Men have to fight to the death. Why do women have so much nonsense to say? Luo Ho Xiaoming was burning with fighting spirit. From his death until now, he had finally eaten a proper meal, but he had yet to experience a proper battle. He had long since reached the end of his patience. Azura could go without food, but they could not go without battle. At that time, the people he wanted to crush would not come obediently to their deaths. The final reward was a world that was on the verge of collapse and an unpredictable, powerful enemy. Therefore, if he wanted to stop the destruction of the world and completely eliminate Li Qingshan, he had to reveal a flaw and give Li Qingshan a chance to deal a fatal blow. That's a great idea. Luo Ho Xiaoming's eyes lit up. If that person reaches the Azura realm, he will definitely be a powerful Azura. The joy of fighting? It's enough for you to experience it. Gu Yenying smiled slightly. Of course, she understood that the battle between the 2 men had already begun. strategy, planning, confrontation, probing, mobilizing all resources, using all methods, forcing the other party step by step, and also putting themselves in a desperate situation step by step. Neither side had any hesitation. From the moment they found out about each other's existence, they swore to kill each other. All the compromises and concessions in between were fake. Today, in a direct confrontation, they would definitely fight to the death. Li Fengyuan listened from the side and felt his blood boiling. He disregarded life and death. Suddenly, he heard Little and say, "Qingshan, actually I can kill all living beings. Kill all living beings." Li Fengyuan's blood instantly froze. Floating astronomy. Chapter 1316. Luo Ho Xiaoming and Gu Yenying both looked at Little and saw that her expression was calm. There was not a hint of malevolence on her face, and there was not a hint of killing intent on her body. She spoke as if it was something as normal as eating and drinking. In her eyes, there was only the existence of Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan was also stunned for a moment. This was somewhat unexpected. From a certain perspective, this was similar to his destruction of the world. However, he had ordered the void-devouring beasts to devour the kingdom of the 9 provinces just to force the Chuo dragon to reveal an opening. Although it had caused a lot of destruction, it was basically a barren land with almost no living beings. If he could defeat the Chuo dragon here, then everything would end here. Even though he was determined to kill, he was trying his best to avoid unnecessary killing. "I don't agree. This is too much." Li Fengyuan ignored his fear of Little and suddenly stood up. A phoenix was ultimately a benevolent bird. Li Qingshan ignored him and asked with a smile, "What do you think?" Luo Ho Xiaoming drank a mouthful of wine and glanced at Li Qingshan. He did not answer. Gu Yenying played with the wine cup with her slender fingers. "Even if we support you, will you retreat today? Why don't you wait until after today? If you can't defeat the Chuo dragon and survive, then we can discuss it again." "Yenying knows me best." Li Qingshan laughed loudly, his voice shaking the mountains. At this point, if he retreated, his momentum would definitely decline. He might as well just leave the kingdom of the 9 provinces. There was no need to drag everyone down with him. Little and lowered her head, feeling slightly disappointed. "I know that you are worried about my safety and don't want me to take the risk. So even though you know my decision, you still have to say it." Li Qingshan spread out his arms and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her tender little face heavily. Xiao En's face blossomed into a smile, which was slightly red. It was like a melting iceberg and a blooming spring flower. "So, I'm the only fool." Li Fengyuan pointed at his own nose and asked in disbelief, "My foolish son, just cook your meat." Li Fengyuan sat down dejectedly. Once again, he felt that he did not live up to his title of king of cooking meat. Li Qingshan waved his hand and erected a barrier with the spirit turtle's profound shell. "Today is indeed a good opportunity. When the Clam King of Mirage Sea ascended, she specifically left behind a clone. For the sake of dealing with Hui Long, he had gone to the Dragon province many years ago. I originally thought that she was going to turn the Grand Xia Imperial Court upside down, but there's been no news from her. She's probably waiting for the Chuo dragon's true body to descend. A few days ago, she appeared in my dream and specially reminded me to come today." He described the dream in detail, especially the last scene of the dream. "No wonder you're so determined. However, I was a little confused. Jade Palace was the 9-tailed Fox Queen's territory after all. Could a mere Clam King of Mirage Sea really set up a powerful ambush there, even if he really wanted to deal with Chuo Long? The Skyfrost Wolf King wouldn't even be able to take a single blow from him. So, could this be a trap specially set up to lure you here?" Gu Yenying's eyes narrowed, slightly. She gazed at the distant jade palace and said, "The umbrella-wielding person you saw at the end of your dream is most likely the nine-tailed fox queen. It's said that she carries an umbrella like that all year round." Li Qingshan shrugged with a relaxed expression. "Perhaps she convinced the nine-tailed fox queen to lend us a hand." He licked his lips. "Have you seen the nine-tailed fox queen before? I heard that she's the greatest beauty in the world." "Is that true?" Gu Yenying said in exasperation. "When Huilong met the nine-tailed fox queen, not even 80 generations of your ancestors had been born. She may not have held a wedding with Huilong, but she's already the empress of the Grand Xia dynasty. She's been receiving tributes from the Grand Xia dynasty for the past 5,000 years. So why would she turn against you? If the Clam King of Mirage Sea really had a plan, why didn't she explain it clearly so that we could cooperate?" Li Qingshan said, "Perhaps she was afraid that Huilong would sense it, so she couldn't say it clearly, just in case she divulged the heavenly secrets. Speaking of which, why are you so excited? Or maybe she was afraid that you would sense it. Don't tell me you've been charmed." Gu Yenying's eyes were like lightning as she examined Li Qingshan. "How am I excited? Tell me, little." And, "Is she excited?" "Yes." Little and nodded seriously. "See, you still won't admit it." Li Qingshan smiled smugly. "Hey, is this the time to discuss my emotions?" "Li Qingshan, I'm very suspicious of your mental state right now." "How is that possible? It's not like I've never seen a woman before." Li Qingshan could not help but think back to the golden wheat field, when she looked back and smiled under the umbrella. He clearly did not see her complete appearance, but it just happened to be so clear. Have I really fallen for her charms? He shook his head and tossed this thought out of his head. Also, why would the Clam King of Mirage Sea help Huilong against me? Luo Hoshaoming said, "Wait, I have a question. The nine-tailed fox queen you speak of, is it the boasting of a normal fox spirit or a real nine-tailed fox from the Green Hill country?" Li Qingshan said, Is there a difference? She's just a fox spirit anyway." "There's a huge difference, like a snake and a dragon. If she's a real nine-tailed fox, then it wouldn't be strange at all for you to be charmed. Even the Clam King of Mirage, see you speak of, might have been charmed." Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. "That powerful? Nine-tailed foxes are a race even rarer than dragons and phoenixes. They're born with the beauty of the world and the beauty of all things. Their charms are hard to resist, and they can even be used on all living beings. It's said that nine-tailed foxes rely on their charms to cast spells. King Yu's wife, Tushan, is a nine-tailed fox. That Huilong claimed to be a descendant of Yu the Great because of this story. He must have been charmed as well. No wonder he divided this world into 9 provinces and established some great xia. He must have wanted to please her." Gu Yenying said, "That's what I'm worried about. How can a normal fox spirit make Huilong so obsessed? I don't think a certain someone can stop them if they work together. Otherwise, let's just go kill all living beings." Luo Hoshaoming said, "However, if it really is a nine-tailed fox, then it's too strange. This race is different from dragons and phoenixes. Most of them are concentrated in the Green Hill country and rarely wander outside. Also, according to you, she passed the 3rd heavenly tribulation 5,000 years ago. So how is it possible that she hasn't ascended yet? There were many divine beasts and strange beasts in this world, and it was even ruled by the dragon race for a long time. However, these talented races cultivated very quickly, whether it was ascension or being buried in the tribulation thunder. This world couldn't accommodate them. It was the same for the nine-tailed fox." Gu Yenying said, "I think she doesn't want to ascend to the path of demonic beasts, and has been waiting for Huilong to return. Although the nine-tailed fox will choose her partner, she's not known for her loyalty. Why would she waste 5,000 years in this place for a mere huilong? Was it a trap or an opportunity? All doubts were focused on the nine-tailed fox empress, which would determine the outcome of this battle. Even with Gu Yeniying's insight and Luo Ho Xiaoming's knowledge, they couldn't make a judgment in a short time. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed. Very well, the nine-tailed fox empress is mine. Gu Yenying held her forehead and sighed. Hey, little brother Qingshan, are you listening to us? Of course I'm listening. Looks like the nine-tailed fox empress really is the #1 beauty of the 9 provinces. Humph, a puny huilong dares to provoke me. I'll eat your dog, kill your entire family, and sleep with your wife. Li Qingshan had an evil look on his face. He was already imagining the taste of the fruits of victory. Little, and this bastard must have been charmed. He must have been charmed. Yes. Little and nodded seriously. Dawn was breaking in the east. Li Qingshan stood up and gazed into the distance. Thank you for your wonderful analysis. It gave me a new understanding of the situation. However, I still have to make a choice. I can either retreat out of fear and slaughter the common people, or I can fight to kill the huilong. I choose the latter. So what if I've been charmed? So what if it's a trap? The huilong won't obediently wash his neck and wait for death. In any case, I think I can fight. Luo Ho Xiaoming picked up the cauldron and drank the soup in one gulp. Then let's fight. All right, I really don't know how you managed to make it this far. Gu Yenying had a helpless look on her face. She, who was always farsighted, had only acted impulsively once for the Kuan Peng feather. She really wasn't used to this kind of brainless charge. I've always had little and to help me strategize. Of course, there's also my sharp intuition. It's coming. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed. The sun rose in the east. A huge dragon flew over the horizon, its golden head splitting the sea of clouds. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a true dragon, but a fleet. The flagship at the front was unprecedentedly huge. The huilong stood at the bow of the ship with his hands behind his back. Chapter 1318. Got it, Li Qingshan responded, but the interest in his eyes grew stronger. Luo Ho Xiaoming thought that he had miscalculated. If he accepted this warning, he would not be Li Qingshan. He was no better than someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. Bang! The white jade doors of Jadeite Palace opened completely. A beautiful woman stood at the door. Her hair was as white as snow, and her clothes were as white as a fairy's. Her sleeves were decorated with white velvet that fluttered in the wind. Snowflakes danced around her like an ice fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. She held a large axe in her hand. It was translucent and ferocious. Her pure white eyes stared at the Feng Long outside the door, freezing his thoughts. Xiao Yi. The Feng Long's expression changed. He had not expected to meet her here. Frost Feather Moth King. Li Qingshan was shocked. The white-haired woman was the Frost Feather Moth King he had saved from Ice Sword Cliff. Didn't she have a grudge against the nine-tailed fox queen? He had entrusted Xianyue to her in the past because he did not want Xianyue to have anything to do with the great Xia. He had not expected her to be in Jadeite Palace. The howling of the snowstorm grew stronger, and the chill was bone-chilling. The Frost Feather Moth King unfurled her white feather clothes. Her white hair danced in the wind as she swung her profound ice-divine axe. The snowstorm spun rapidly with the axe as the center. The ice and snow turned into a tornado that shot into the sky like a furious white dragon. Feng Long. The Frost Feather Moth King's voice was filled with bone-chilling hatred. She seized the opening that the Feng Long revealed due to his emotions and swung her profound ice divine axe down. The snow tornado tilted like a collapsing pillar. It was unstoppable. The officials caught up and shouted, "Protect the king," or "Watch out for the monster's sneak attack." Did the Clam King of Mirage send me here to work together against the Phone Long? The axe is powerful, and the axe technique is exquisite. It seems that she has recovered her strength and gained control of the weapon soul in the axe. There are probably not many people in the world who can block it, but this is far from enough to defeat the Phone Long. Li Qingshan shook his head. He did not think the Frost Feathermoth King's attack would work. He had no intention of rushing forward to cooperate. Chuolong's expression returned to normal. He waved his right sleeve and ordered the officials to retreat. His left hand formed a sword with his fingers, which instantly pierced through the wind and snow and landed on the Frost Feathermoth King's forehead. The scene seemed to freeze, and the ministers stopped in their tracks with different expressions. The profound ice divine axe stopped above the Hui Dragon's head, unable to descend any further. Boom! The falling snow tornado collapsed in an instant, and the condensed ice and snow were like a huge avalanche, smashing a 1,000-feet-long trench on the ground. The Emperor Dragon King was also within the attack range. A faint golden barrier rose up and easily blocked all the attacks. Xiao Yi, long time no see. The flying dragon slowly withdrew its sword fingers, ignoring the profound ice divine axe above its head. It looked straight at the Frost Feathermoth King with gentle eyes. "Tuolong, you finally dare to attack me directly, and here I thought you were plotting something." The Frost Feathermoth King's lips curled into a cold smile. He returned to his cold and emotionless appearance. He took a step back and let the door open. He raised his arm and said, "Since you've passed my test, please come in. Today is your wedding day. Don't miss the hour." Li Qingshan repeatedly simulated the flying dragon's sword finger in his mind, estimating the flying dragon's strength. As expected, the difference in strength is too great.